We're going to go ahead and get started with the verification process. Now, remember, if you took applications this year, which I know wasn't exactly required, we highly, highly, highly suggested it because I know everybody's doing SSO, but if you are doing applications, you do need to be doing the verification process. Okay, we're going to go ahead. Let's see here. Now, if you do have any questions, if you have any more questions, so this training will be up in OSDE Connect tomorrow. So if you did not get a chance to be here, or if you know people who couldn't be here, or if you get kicked out, we're putting this training, it will be up tomorrow in OSDE Connect, and the instructions have already been updated with it. So you can go out again to other documents in the CAR system under training information, and you can get that if you do know anybody else who if you want to use this training again. Also, you can contact your consultant. They're a great resource. They're the one that comes out and looks, because we're doing reviews this year, they're the one that comes out and does your school review. So if you do have any further questions, you can contact the office, but you can also contact your consultant if you have any more questions. And again, here is our state agency phone number, and then you can go to page C3 and find your consultant's cell phone and email address if you want to contact them. We did update the reporting dates. So if you have a manual, the manual that was printed at the time, we did not know about verification, or if we did, it already had been sent to print, but we did update page C5 in the compliance document because it did say not applicable for 2022, but it is now applicable. But if you do want to go and look at the reporting dates, you can go into, it is online. You can go to the manual online and look at page C5, and it does have that cleared out. It no longer says not applicable for FY22. And then if you need to know any acronyms that we use, that is in the manual on page C6. And when we talk about C, that's the compliance section if you are newer to child nutrition. So this is all going to be in the compliance section. So let's go ahead and start talking about the verification process. As you can see here on the screen, we have a little green box at the bottom and it says E-38. That's our eligibility section. So everything on here, if it has a page number, that's where you can go in the training manual and find that page number that correlates with the slide that we're talking about. So when you do start verification, what this really isn't a problem any longer. It used to be, but you do have to have a free phone number for households to call your district in case they have any questions about the verification process. And a free number needs to be included in all written notices to the household, which a lot of you do now. And with cell phones, it's pretty much every number is free with a cell phone, which is fantastic. So verification requirements. So as a reminder, it's based on the applications that you have new of this current year that you have on file as of October 1st. You cannot include any carryover applications. And when you do verification, whatever number you're supposed to be doing, whatever number it tells you to pull, you cannot do more or less than that sample size chosen. So if it tells you you need to pull 5, you cannot do 6 and you cannot do 4, you have to do 5. And last but not least, verification deadline, the process has to end on November 15th. So you begin the process October 1st, and you have to end the process by November 15th. So it's a very quick process, but again, you can start it October 1st and it goes into November 15th. And again, it is your new applications that you have on file as of October 1st. That's how you base your sample size. So there are some of those that are exempt from being verified. The people that are excluded from being verified are those children that show up on direct certification. If they are on your homeless migrant runaway list, or if you have any kids that are federally funded in a Head Start. Those kids are not included in your total number for October 1. It's only based on applications that you receive as of October 1. And we just like to remind everybody that you can, if you have any 3-year-olds, that are not disabled, they're 3-year-olds, they're not enrolled in your district, so those kids can eat and you can claim those meals, but they are not considered as ineligible. So who else is exempt? Now, if you are an RCCI and you do not have any day students, or if you're a provision in a non-base year, then you will also be exempt from doing verification. But just as a reminder, even if you are exempt from doing verification, that does not exempt you from doing the verification summer report in November, December. So you may not have to do verification, but everybody has to do the verification summer report. So we just want to make sure, remember that you may not have to do verification, but you do have to still do the verification report, even if you're CEP, Provision 2, or any of those. Okay, polling verification. As a reminder, you know, your systems, they're wonderful. They do a lot of great things. They pull a lot of reports for us. They're fantastic, but please, please double check the number of applications your system is pulling for verification. This is something that we've seen in the past, that you may do the wrong number of applications, and it's due to the applications that your system pulled. So just make sure that whenever you're pulling for verification, you double check your applications that your system pulls, so you pull the correct amount. Check the system generated report. It's the list for applications and rosters totaled. It should be the same. And then the low income report generated doesn't count virtually enrolled. So they need to make sure those students in the district, and this is a little bit different because this is when we were thinking about our old virtual kids, remember in the past, you didn't count virtual children. So this is different because of the whole COVID situation, where before, if you had virtual kids, they were enrolled, but you didn't count them into your eligibles. So again, that's kind of an old little slide, but remember, we understand if you're doing virtual because of COVID, they are still enrolled in your district. I forgot about that one little thing. So let's talk about the sample sizes for verification. You'll have the standard sample size, alternate 1, and alternate 2. You are always supposed to do standard sample size unless you're kind of exempt, then you can do alternate 1 and alternate 2, but the standard sample size is the most common one. It's the one that your system is going to do if you're using your system to pull for verification. So what is the standard sample size? And if you do go to the eligibility manual on page 39, it does have the chart that does show all the samples, the standard, the alternate 1, and the alternate 2. So what the standard sample size is you take, of your applications on October 1, you take 3%. So however many numbers you have for October 1, you take 3%, and that's what you use for verification. Now, when you pull those applications, they need to be what we call error-prone applications. And your system will probably pull the error-prone applications, but I also put in the handouts when I sent the slides yesterday, the error-prone chart is also in there, and we'll talk about what the error-prone means. If you do not have enough error-prone applications, then you will randomly select from all other applications until you meet that 3%. So let's say that it tells you that for verification, you have to do 5 applications, and you only have 3 applications that are error-prone applications. So you would pull those 3 for sure, and then you would just pull 2 other random applications to complete your 5 that you have to do for verification. So with error-prone applications, what that means is these are applications that the annual income comes between $1,200 below the annual income scale, or the monthly income falls within $100 below the income scale. And you'll kind of notice, like, I don't know if you've ever been approving applications if you do it by hand, but like if I was out in the field and we're approving applications, we're making sure your applications are approved correctly. When I would look and be like, whoa, they barely made it. They barely made it. So that's usually, you can tell, is usually an error-prone application. Again, your system will usually flag those automatically, but if you're doing these by hand, what we would really suggest, especially if you're newer, and I know this is a little late to tell you this, but when you're approving applications, if you could tell it might be an error-prone application, is to flag it or to go ahead and put it in a separate file. And yes, Jessica, it is 3% of the total number of free and reduced applications. That's what you will select for verification using the standard sample. So an example of an error-prone application is you have an application and it has a family of 4, and that annual income is between $33,250 and $34,450 for free benefits. So with error-prone that was reduced, it would be an example of family of 4 with a monthly income between $3,986 and $4,086. That for reduced benefits, and that's the per month. Again, we did have the scale. I'm going to go ahead and quickly minimize this and show you the scale, just so you are understanding what it looks like whenever you see it. Let's see here. Again, this was in your handouts. If you did not find it in your handout packet, you can also go to, it will also be located in other documents. And this, you know what, it may not show it. It actually may not show it because I'm not in my office, so I am doing something funky today, so it's not going to show what it is. Actually, here we go. I can do this really quickly.
You may have to do a new share.
Yep, that's what I'm going to do. Thank you. I was like, I'm not used to doing this in here. So this is what the error-prone scale does look like. If you guys can see that, did it pull it up, Becky? Yeah. Perfect. So this is what the error-prone scale looks like. This is the one for this year. This is updated every year. So this will be in your file. It's in your handouts. And again, if you can't see this, or if you did not get the handouts, all the handouts are in other documents. Or again, you can just get this error-prone scale by itself if you need to in other documents as well. Okay. When you're not used to. All right. So non-response, let's see here. Okay. What you may have what we call is a non-response rate. So last year, I know some of you did verification, some of you did not, and you probably had a really bad response in general. So what we talk about is a non-response rate. So everybody is supposed to do the standard sample, or if you don't get a lot of your applications back, you always have to do the standard sample. The only time that you can do the alternate 1 or the alternate 2 is if you get 80% more response in the previous year. So the USDA calls it a non-response of 20%, but we call, basically, if you had 80% that responded to their verification, then you are allowed to do a different type of verification. So I hope that kind of makes sense. And like I said, I know last year was kind of an off year. And Dana, I may have you, would you base this off of last year's information if they didn't do verification, or would you do it based on 2019 if they didn't do verification last year? Or would you think they have to do the standard sample if they didn't do verification last year?
If they did not do verification at all last year, they would base it on the 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I know we're just in some weird times right now. We're in some very weird times. So I agree with Dina on that. I would say if you didn't do verification last year, as a consultant, I would go ahead and look at your previous year. You do have to have documentation though. So if you are doing a different verification sample, like if you're doing alternate 1 or alternate 2, you have to show us that you had 80% or more that responded. And we don't mean that what we mean by a response is they actually either talked to you about maybe their benefits changed. They did respond. They either sent you documentation, or maybe they called you and say, hey, I'm not going to send anything into you because I end up making over what was on the application. As long as they responded to you for verification. It's just when they don't send anything in, they don't call you, they don't do anything, that's called a non-response. But what we suggest is every year after you do verification is you need to fill out this form, and this form is located on E71. And what you do is you put in how many your current school year, how many applications you had on file as of October 1. And then you would tell us if for that previous school year, what you did, how many that you had to do for verification and how many actually responded to verification. Because we can't let you do another one unless you show us that you were able to get that 80% response rate. So what is this alternate 1 and this alternate 2? So what alternate 1 is if you have, and it's this where most of you are going to fall into place on this, is if you, out of all your applications, again, you do the 3% of all your applications. So, and let's just say you have to do 5 applications based on that 3%, but you do not have to pull them from error prone. You pull them randomly. Just any application you have on file, you pull it. You do not have to do error prone, which is really nice because I've been to some schools where they have 1 application they have to approve. And the problem is the application, they only have 1 or 2 people in their whole district that are error prone. So every year they're pulling the same person over and over again. So if they always respond to you, then the next year you can do the alternate 1 and do the 1 application, but pull it from all applications and not just error prone application. So if you did not get 1 single response, you are still required to do the standard sample, which is the 3%, but they have to be error prone first, and then you can pull random. The only way you can do alternate 1 or alternate 2 is if you have that 80% response in the previous year. Now, alternate 2, it looks a little bit confusing, but I'll try my best to explain it to you. So alternate 1, you pull 3% again, but it's just you pull from any application you want. It does not have to be an error-prone application, just all applications. You just randomly pull an application, and that's the one that's picked for verification. Well, with alternate 2, instead of pulling a 3%, you're pulling 1.5%. So let's just say that you have to do 6 applications if you pull 3%. If you do alternate 2, you essentially are pulling 3 applications. You're pulling half applications from all the other ways of doing verification. So with this one, you take, as October 1, you take your total number of applications for free and reduced, and you pull 1%. And that 1% that you pulled has to be from error prone. So you pull 1, you take your 1%, and then that 1% you do error prone. Then again, you take your October 1 number total, and then you take that as a 0.5%. When you take the 0.5%, the number of applications it tells you to pull, that 0.5% it tells you to pull will be applications that have case numbers on them. And when we talk about a case number, those are your applications that have SNAP, TANF, FITPR, but they did not show up on direct certification. So it's a child that has a case number on an application, but that they were not on direct certification. So does that make sense? Does that make sense to you guys, what I just said? Yeah. Okay, so on standard sample, you pull 3%. You first, out of those 3%, it has to be from error-prone applications. If you don't have enough error-prone applications, then you pull randomly. If you've had an 80% response rate for verification, people that responded to your request for verification, even if their status changed, they still responded. If you have an 80%, then you can do alternate 1 and alternate 2. And then again, alternate 1 is it as of October 1, you pull again 3% applications, but you can pull any application you want. There's no requirements. It doesn't matter if it's error prone. It doesn't matter if it's a case number. It doesn't matter if there's a foster kid on there. It doesn't matter. That's alternate 1. And then alternate 2, you take your total number of applications on file as of October 1, and then you find out what 1% is. And whatever that 1% number is, that's how many you pull error prone. And then what you do is you take your total number of October numbers again and say and then you make it a 0.5%. And then whatever number that tells you, those applications have to have a case number on them. So again, if on alternate 1, it tells you need 6 applications, that's 3%, and you have to do 6 applications. If you happen to do alternate 2, because you're doing half of that, you're doing 1.5% total applications, you would actually only be doing 3. I had a territory that a lot of them did do the alternate sample size too, because they only had to pull half the required amount. And if you need help or you want us to really walk through this with you again, sometimes it makes it a lot easier when you're actually pulling your percentage. When you know how many applications you have on file as of October 1, it's a little bit easier to come up with your total number that you need, depending on the sample size that you're doing. This is an example of the chart, and this is on page E39. So if you do want to look at the chart, this is where you'll locate it at. Okay, so that's how you pull the number of applications that you need. So once you pull your applications that you're going to have to do for a verification, you have to do what's called a confirmation review. What that means is so you may have a computer system that approves your applications, or you have a couple people at your district that they approve applications. What a confirmation review is you have another person looking at the applications that you pulled for review just to make sure they were approved correctly. So if for verification, you have to pull 5 applications, you have to give those 5 applications to somebody else and have them look at them to make sure you did your math correctly. That's what confirmation review is. Again, so whoever determined it, it has to be somebody other than who determined whoever determined the application originally is who does the confirmation review. Again, the confirmation review is only for those applications that you're verifying, and it's just somebody else making sure that they were originally approved correctly. So if those applications were approved correctly, you go ahead and move on with verification. Well, maybe one of the applications that you pulled for verification, it was actually not approved correctly. So what you would do then is go to page E40, and it will tell you what you need to do in case that happens. Okay, so you pulled your applications for verification. Now you're doing your confirmation review. The one thing, and even when I was in the field, when you do your confirmation review, there is a chance you could have a waiver if your computer system approves your applications for you. However, the only way to get a waiver is you must contact your consultant every single year for them to waive it. And I will be completely honest with you, most of your consultants are not going to waive it. They want you to do the confirmation review, because you could have, if you input the numbers correctly, and we've had it seen before where a system was not correct. The system had the numbers in there wrong, and so they were approving them wrong, a lot of their applications. So I will go ahead and tell you now, most of your consultants will not approve a waiver if your computer system is the one that is approving your application. So again, when you get those applications, if you're the one that approved it, you need to give them to somebody else to make sure you did your math correctly. That's the whole purpose. And then they need to sign that where it says confirming official, that they confirmed that you did your math correctly, or the computer did the math correctly. You are also allowed to substitute if need be. So a district can decline up to 5% of its verification sample and replace it with another error-prone application. So an example of this is you have to pull, say in this scenario, you pull 5 applications for verification. And it says here, you multiply it by 0.05 for 5%, and it says 0.25. You are, even if it's under 1 application, you are still allowed to decline up to 1 application. And a reason for this is if you believe a household would not be able to they will not be able to respond. We've run into a situation where maybe there was a death in the family, in the immediate family during verification. So they pulled the verification and they realized that the mom passed away, and it was just not a good time to be contacting the family and asking them for their financial information. So you may run into instances like that, but again, you are allowed to substitute, but you're only allowed to substitute up to 5%. If your number is under 1%, you can still decline one application and substitute that one for another error-prone application. Or if you did alternate sample 1 or 2, you can do it for a random one or whatever it tells you to do in that section. So we do have our notification letter. It is on page E74, which is the eligibility manual. You must use this form when you're notifying the family of verification. You cannot use your own form. You have to use our form. So again, you can find this on page E74. So we talked about direct certification and how those students are not involved. They are not to be used in, to be pulled for verification. Direct certification, and we are now going to talk about direct verification. What does direct verification mean? Well, direct verification is when you pull an application and that application has a case number on it, but that child did not show up on direct cert list. So you pull an application and that has a case number for SNAP, TANF, or FIDPER, or even foster. What it allows you to do is you can contact that agency directly and verify that they are still getting benefits. That is what direct verification is. The direct verification form that you will use to send to those agencies is in the eligibility section on page 76 and 77. So again, it's not, a lot of people don't use direct verification, but you are allowed to do it. What direct verification does allow is in case the parent or the family doesn't respond, but that state agency or the tribe might respond, so you will still be getting a response. So again, direct verification is when you are going to the company directly, the agency, and verifying that they are still on SNAP, TANF, or FIDPER, or foster. It's not direct certification. They're two completely different things. So I just kind of want to make clear that, again, a lot of people do not use direct verification, but if you do pull a application that has a case number on there, it gives you 2 chances of somebody responding, either that agency or the family. So it's a really good deal that you get that response. Okay, now, when you're doing verification, if a family does not respond to your initial request, you are required to have a follow-up notice. So you have to make at least one additional attempt to get the information that you need, and you do need to maintain that documentation. So what you do is you send them a letter saying that they were selected for verification. And then let's just say after 15 days, you have no response for them. You are required to send them another letter to notify them that they have been selected for verification, that you need documentation from them. A district is allowed to have a third party assist with follow-ups, but I don't know if anybody is still doing that. I did know of one school several years ago that used a third party for verification. I just don't know. I don't think they still are. But again, once you contact the family and no one responds, you are required to send them notice at least in one follow-up to make sure that they know that they were selected for verification and they need to get you the documentation that you need. So adverse action. So this is written, it's 10 calendar days for verification. So when would you send them an adverse action letter is if there's a change in their eligibility status, if there's the reason for the change, that they have a right to appeal, they have the right to reapply for benefits, but if they reapply, they still have to send you the documentation that was requested during verification. And the benefits must continue if they decide that they want to appeal it, that the benefits do have to continue until there has been any verdict by the hearing official. So that is what adverse action, that is what that, and then you can find that on page E44 and E78. We do have an adverse action letter. So how do you completion of verification? You have to have a record of all verification activity, including dates, any follow-up letters. You do need to keep a file with all of your verification. Any changes resulting from verification must be extended to all children in the household. The entire verification process, it still has to be completed by November 15th. And then don't forget the verification summary report that every district has to do. Even if you don't have to do verification, all districts still have to do the verification summary report. And we'll be doing that training in November on the 18th. So other verification issues. So households can reapply after reduction or termination of benefits. So say say they don't respond at all to you. And then a couple weeks later, they're sending you another application because they want to have benefits again. Well, because they were selected for verification for this fiscal year, anytime that they submit a new application, you have to have documentation supporting that application. But if they send in an application next year, they don't have to send anything. It's only for the year that they were pulled for verification. So again, if say they don't respond to you at all and they go from free to paid status, then if they send another application to you, which I know with this year, they're not going to do that because everybody's on SSO and everybody's eating for free. But in previous years, a lot of families would send in another application thinking you forgot that they were supposed to be pulled for verification. But you cannot change their status unless you have documentation of their income. You can do what we call verification for cause. What verification for cause is you can do verification for cause at any time. It doesn't have to be during the verification process. It can be for any application that you have on file. Why would you do this? If you have any reason to believe that the application information is not valid or not correct, the only thing we really say to be very cautious about, and we say to do this with caution, we would even maybe suggest contacting your consultant or the state agency first and maybe talking about it, because we don't want it to be someone that might say, well, you're discriminating against me, or harassment. So this doesn't happen very often. We don't see it very often, but we just say if you do want to verify for cause to handle it with care, you would follow the same procedures as you would for verification. But again, you can do this at any time for any application. But if you do verify for cause, it is done outside of your verification pool. So if you are required to select 5 applications and you select those 5, but you have this one application that you really want to pull for verification, you will pull that separately. So you would actually be doing 6 for verification, the 5 that you had to pull, and then this one is the one for cause. It's outside of your 5. You have to do it separately outside of that number. If it didn't get pulled, like if it wasn't error prone or if it wasn't in your pool to pull for verification. So let's kind of recap this whole verification process. You do start it on or around October 1st. And to be quite honest with you, I've kind of mentioned to my schools that I would start verification maybe October 2nd, October 3rd. And the reason why is because we get the list from DHS for direct certification on October 1st. So you may want to look at your matches again on October 2nd, because that may eliminate some more applications that you have to put in your number. It could make your pool smaller for verification. So let's just say as of October 1, you had 150 applications on file and you pull the direct cert list, and there was 2 families that had kids that now are showing up on direct cert list. So instead of being 150 applications that are on file, it would now be 148. So you may want to pull your direct cert list before you do verification, just to see if you have any other applications you can take out of there. So you start the process on or around October 1st, October 2nd. You send them a letter saying that you tell them who has been pulled for verification. And then I would say give them a few days, like 15 days or so. And if you don't get a response, then you have to send them a second notice. But again, your entire process must be completed by November 15th. So this is just a suggested timeline. Again, this is not set in stone. This is just kind of suggested. Again, pull your DC list and then pull your applications. And so let's just say you start this on October 4th. And that's when you send out your first request letter is on October 4th. And you request that first letter in your request, you tell everybody you want your stuff back by October 19th. So you get everything on October 19th and say you did not get responses from a few of your people. So then I would send your second notice out on October 20th, the next day. And then you need to give them time to send it back as well. And let's just say your second request, it needs to be due by November 4th. Well, then say November 4th, you still don't get a response from a couple of them, then that's when you need to send out that adverse action letter. And I would send that out on November 5th. Because that gives you 10 calendar days before you have to change those benefits. And then that way your verification is completed by November 15th. Does that make sense? And we're talking benefits changed everything by November 15th. What we would have a lot is they're like, oh, you have to have your verification to us by November 15th. No, the entire process has to be done by November 15th. And that includes if you have to make any changes in benefits and you're still getting them those 10 calendar days to make those benefits before you have to change the benefits. So again, after you will do verification, then all districts, including RCCI's provisions and CEP schools, everybody has to do the summer report. And we will be doing verification summary report training on November 18th. And that is the verification process. Do we have any questions? And I see that we do have some questions coming through. And thank you, Dana and Becky, for answering some of those questions. Yes, be very careful with the for cause ones. We don't see it very often. And again, I would highly suggest you talk to us up here or even your consultant before you want to do something like that. Just because we don't want a situation, because tensions may be already high and then you pull them for verification for cause and it may create other issues. So if that's
all right, and I'll chime in a little bit. We've had a few questions, especially on the for cause. Remember, that is outside of your 3%.
Yes.
So if you're reviewing some of those, and I know several of you made comments, you're not going to get a response. No, we understand at the State Department, you are not going to have parents respond to verification. We just have to follow the process.
Yes, this is in a normal year. This is what you would have to do. There's no changes to the process because of SSO. And I did see a really good question on there regarding if someone gets paid in cash. If someone gets paid in cash, their employer needs to write a letter and they can state, we would like it on company letterhead. We know that sometimes they don't have that, but it needs to be signed by the company that they are getting paid cash and how much. Or you may have people that are self-employed, they can give you their tax returns. Like farmers, I'm a farm kid. So if they're self-employed, they can send you their tax returns. And some of you did call in. If you call in, or if you look at your username and it is a phone number, if you can please tell us your email address, because if you registered, if you went online and registered your name and your email address, we'll send you one, but only if you call in. It does not give us, if you called in and it has a phone number with your phone, then it does not give us an email address because you did not type your email address in. We will need that. We don't have to have it if you signed in on a computer. We only need it if you called in on your phone and you called the number. So is there any other questions we did not respond to?
Someone's asking that we show the timeline again, Kendra, if you would put the slide back up with the timeline. That's also in the manual.
Yes. And a lot of people would get confused. They think, you know, again, you have to have your second request due by the 15th, and no, everything has to be completely done, benefits changed if need be, by the 15th. And this is in the slides. The slides are always going to remain out in other documents. So you can still go out there if you ever want to refer back to these slides. They are going to remain out there until next year for the most part, or maybe until after verification is completely done, like in going into the new year, like in January, we may take them down. But until then, these will stay up there so you guys can always refer back to the slides if you need to regarding the process. Okay, do we have any more questions?
Someone asked, why can't we send the first request out on the first? You can. You can start, actually, you can start the verification process once an application is approved. The October 1st date is the date that you're going to count your applications, how many you have on file as of October 1st. So
Yes.
that's, you know, even if you start it before, you know, if you started it today, you still need to go back and count or have your system pull those on October 1st so that you know what that number was on October 1st.
Yes. You just may be able to remove some of those applications if you pull your DC list on the 1st or the 2nd, whenever you make your, and it may eliminate a couple of your applications that you wouldn't have to pull for verification, because they would be on the DC list. Or what does happen, which I really need to put a slide in here, is if you pull for verification, say October, you know, you send out the stuff in October and you check the direct cert list every week, and December 30th, you pull up direct cert and a kid pops up that you had for verification. You can use that as a response, and just, you would print that off a direct cert and you would put it to your verification, because they didn't show up on verification and when you first started, but they did eventually show up during the verification process on the direct cert list. That would
Right.
kind of be a direct verification.
And then we've had a question, what happens if a family income has changed from what it is on the application? Do we need a letter from the family? No, you're going to have the family verify their current income. So if in August they filled out an application and they were only making $1,000 a month, but when they turn in their verification, they're making $5,000 a month, they're probably going to change from free or reduced to full paid. You're going to put in your system, they've changed. You're going to send them that adverse letter letting them know of the change. The family doesn't have to do anything other than send you the verification information.
That is correct. And yes, you only count your free and reduced applications for verification. And that is very true, because you could have a parent also that got laid off as well in between the time that they gave you an application, when they send it in to you, and then between verification. So it can always go both ways, and things do change. I mean, man, COVID has changed a lot of things, and things seem to be changing weekly, it seems like. So very good.
And Kelly has asked, did anyone add the word "we" on the interactive form for the notification of selection for verification? It is on the first line. You must send the information, need or contact. It needs a "we" in the letter. Not to my knowledge, Kelly, but we will take a look at that and see what needs you're talking about on the notification to send out for verification. We'll look at that.
Yes. Well, hello, Ms.
Okay.
Wheeland.
Denise Whelan's asked a question, but Dana, the applications are, whoa, it's jumping. The applications are good for a year, so they can show that they made that would be a correct statement that Denise Whelan just made. So if they could show you in August, they were making the $1,000, they didn't send you their current income, they sent you a check stub from August, then that application would be correct and would be verified at the amount that they sent you in August. So in my example, if If they sent you that new information with the 5,000 a month instead of the 1,000, then you would take that. But if they sent you, I'm not sure how you would know their income changed, but say you knew that did, but they sent you the verification information, check stubs, copy of the tax return showing what they made on the original application, then you're going to take that at face value. And another thing to kind of check when you're gathering information up, if an application has, let's say, a husband and a wife, and they both have income on the original application, but they only send you verification information on one income, you need some type of verification on the all income that was listed on the application.
And then
Child support.
Yes, go ahead. I was about to answer that one. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, you can have just a copy of the check to support that they receive child support. And how old can the pay stub be? Kind of like what Denise Whelan said as well. It can be from current year, or it can even be from the month that they sent in their application. But again, you may have some that are self-employed, like farmers and stuff, so you may need their tax return.
Zero income applications, how do you verify that? That's a good question. That family would need to send you a letter stating they still have zero income and how they are living.
Yes.
So probably they're getting some type of assistance from an agency or other family members.
I'm not sure. CARS is our system that's where you go to do the application and the claim. So whoever does that for your school, they can tell you how to get on the CARS website. And you do not have to have a login to get to other documents. On requiring, is it 1 week, 1 month, or one proof? It's proof of that, of their income that they're telling that you're making. So if they're saying they get paid monthly, then probably just a monthly pay stub. If they say that they get paid, say, monthly, and they have child support, you need to show a check for the child support and then how they get paid. So it's really just proof of what they're putting on that application. It's not necessarily 1 week, it's just verifying what they are making. Yes, thank you.
And Laura, no, you do not have to send anything by certified mail. It's not necessarily a bad idea if your school can afford it, and one or two. It just makes sure that just ensures those parents, especially in the normal school year, that they know they have now been maybe benefits have been terminated, or they're been selected for verification. Because sometimes kids beat parents home to the mailbox and they see a letter from the school and maybe they don't always give those to the parents. So it's not a bad idea to do certified mail.
And Pamela, I'm trying to think of what page number it's on, but there is information in the verification section in eligibility manual about what to look at if they are self-employed.
Right. For self-employed, I think you look at the adjusted gross income, but for all others, you use gross income.
Yes.
I'm not sure, Hillary, why everybody's putting their email addresses in here either. It just almost blew my mind.
Well, the only thing that we said is if you called in, we have your email address if you registered, but if you call using the phone number, it just shows your phone number, which we usually only have like 5 of those that do it. So
now we have all kinds of emails.
I know, which we won't use, that will go by what you registered if you typed in your name and your email address. But if you call using your phone, that's the only time we need you to put an email address. So that's the only, yeah. We have it otherwise, but if you call on your phone using your cell phone and not looking at the Zoom app, that's when we need it. So
that's all right. We're good at playing follow the leader, Kay. It's okay. I am going to make one plug for, if you have not submitted your 2022 application in the CARS system, do it now. Do it now. Especially if you have a July claim that needs to be entered. tomorrow at the end of business, you will not be able to enter a July claim for the school program.
Pamela, you did it perfect. If you didn't have a speaker and you called in on your phone, you did it perfect. We've had some people that they didn't get credit. And so that's why I tried putting it on there. I may not be putting it on there good, but yes, we will get you guys all hooked up, I promise. And I
Dan.
understand that, Dan. Well, technically though, I understand what you're saying, Dan, but technically on your end, it's free or reduced as they're eligible. I understand what it means by meals, and in a normal year, it would say that. I just don't know if we can change it because it's a USDA.
Yeah, they can, this year they can, USDA has said they can add a statement.
Okay.
That even if you have to send out an adverse letter, you can type at the bottom that meals will continue free under SSO.
You can submit August claims as soon as your application is approved. Because it is working correctly, isn't it, Dana? Claims are?
Yes, yeah, that is correct. All the claim systems, to my knowledge, and you girls that are on here, they're sitting in there with Kendra. I don't think we've had any issues with
If
claims.
you're having issues with your claim, it might be because your application's just not approved yet.